Hello, and welcome to my sociology demonstration of learning. So, what is sociology? What does a sociologist do? A sociologist studies human interaction in society. They must question the everyday things people do that are considered common sense to most, and view them from an outsider's perspective. A sociologist looks at the ways that society shapes us as individuals. They can do this by looking at the macro and micro aspects of society. Looking at society at the macro level means taking a broad view of the large-scale workings that shape society, while a micro view looks at the smaller inner workings of society. Macro-level sociology tends to focus on large changes in society, such as the causes of major social change and its impact on society. Micro-level sociology tends to focus on interactions between individuals, like relationships among individuals of a small group of people. So, what are the three sociological perspectives that sociologists use when looking at the big topics in sociology? They are symbolic interactionism, structural functionalism, and conflict theory. So the first is symbolic interactionalism. So unlike the other perspectives, which focus on the operations of society by taking a broad view of it, symbolic interactionism focuses on the everyday interactions of people and how they shape society. So it's a micro perspective. It focuses on how people shape their reality through their daily interactions. People create meaning for objects and actions, which they share with one another through their interactions. For example, when someone nods their head, that action on its own would have no distinct meaning, but people have assigned this action the meaning of yes. When brought into society, a person learns the meaning of this gesture through the people that they interact with, and therefore, the person continues to give it meaning. Imagine that you have never seen any of the symbols above before. You probably wouldn't understand any of them. They would look like random shapes. Because of your interactions with others who give meaning to these objects, you have been taught to give meaning to them as well. This changes the way that you behave in the world. Another example is if you see a handicap sign, you aren't going to park in that spot because it's only for handicapped people unless you are handicapped. So therefore, a person's reality and way of life is dependent on what they give meaning to. The next perspective is structural functionalism. The structural functionalist perspective views society as an organism with different parts that must all work together in order for the society to function as a whole. Structural functionalism asserts the idea that the different institutions of our society exist because they help society function. From a structural functionalist point of view, even negative parts of our society have a function. For example, a structural functionalist perspective on crime is that it is necessary for the function of society because it promotes social unity and strengthens moral values and norms. This perspective can be problematic because it does not inspire us to change the negative parts of society because even they serve a function. This perspective originated from French sociologist Émile Durkheim. And the final perspective is conflict theory, which states that because there is limited resources, society is constantly in a state of conflict to gain access to those resources. Karl Marx, who created the fundamentals of conflict theory, believed that the divisions between the classes created the central conflict in society. He saw those with wealth and power who controlled the means of production as the bourgeois, and those who were the working class and worked under the bourgeois were known as the proletariats. These two groups were basically the haves and the have-nots of society, and the conflict between these two groups leaves society in a constant state of conflict. This is what motivates societies to change over time in favor of one group or another. So, how can these perspectives explain aspects of our society? Here are just a few examples. Why do some people have an abundance of wealth in our society and some people have barely enough to survive? The three sociological perspectives each have very different answers to this. Structural functionalism says that poverty has a function in society. It motivates people to work hard in order to get jobs that provide with higher wages. People wouldn't be motivated to get highly skilled jobs if they didn't provide benefits, and there must be people who are not highly skilled to work lower skilled jobs. Society would not function without either of these. Conflict theory says that stratification exists because the people in power oppress the people with less power, thus making it difficult for people with less power to get out of their position. Symbolic interactionism deals with how people of different social positions live and how their lives differ from those of different classes. The way that people of these different classes interact and live determines their outcome in society, and the way that they behave is shaped by the position that they are in. Another example is gender. From a sociologist's point of view, gender is something that has been constructed in our society. A structural functionalist answer to why gender exists in the first place would be that it was a way to organize society so that there were people to take care of the work necessary to live a successful life. Women took care of the tasks at home, like cooking and cleaning, while men worked to earn a wage to provide for the house. These roles complemented the sexes that people were born with, so they were effective. A symbolic interactionist perspective says that gender exists because we make it exist. Every one of us performs gender roles every day that shape how gender is defined in our society. The way that gender is currently defined in our society tends to favor men, which leads into the way that conflict theory views gender. Conflict theory sees gender as a structural system in which men have more power and control than women. And men, though not always consciously, use the continuation of gender norms in our society to maintain control. And religion performs the functions of uniting a group of people around shared norms, beliefs, practices, and symbols. Religion also functions as a form of social control because it gives people a reason to behave within societal norms because they are living the way that they believe their divine figure wants them to. A final function of religion is that it provides people meaning because they believe that there is a higher power beyond their own existence. From a symbolic interactionist perspective, religious organizations use symbols to represent their beliefs and values, and they use these symbols as reinforcement for the way that they live their lives. Conflict theory sees religion as another mechanism that separates the powerful from the less powerful, because people with power in many religious organizations are believed to be deserving of this power because it is the way that their divine figure intended it. And that is how they maintain power, is because most people are not willing to go against the people in power because it would be like going against the divine power above. So there are many other aspects of society that can be understood from three perspectives of sociology, but I will stick with these three examples, and I hope that this helped you understand the topic better, or maybe just helped reinforce your understanding. And yeah.